Keir Starmer has. We think something in the order of a black hole of 20 to 30 billion pounds that, come the budget in November time, he's going to have to fill pretty much entirely with tax rises. Now, I was watching Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's Questions today and watched him rule stuff out and box himself in. So the question today is Keir Starmer ending up in a dead end on tax? Right. Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, was pushing Keir Starmer to repeat a promise not to touch the main taxes when it comes to the budget. Listen how definitively Keir Starmer says and recommits to that.
Labour promised not to increase income tax, not to increase national insurance and not to increase VAT. Does the Prime Minister still stand by his promises?
Yes.
Now, the thing about that is that just last week, Cabinet Ministers told me that they were looking at breaking that promise and maybe touching some of the big taxes like income tax and national insurance because of the scale of that black hole, because of the scale of the problem. But, you know, you heard Keir Starmer there. He sounded as definitive as he could be. This is worrying economists. Let me explain why. Because he's promised not to touch pretty much most of the taxes that you can touch that raise a lot of money in this country. In fact, 75% of them, almost three-quarters of them, he said he's not going to touch income tax, although there is a little bit of a question mark about that, and we'll come back to that in a moment. He's not going to touch national insurance, which is actually what they touched in the budget. VAT, that's off the table as well, and corporation tax, meaning that the sort of pool of taxes that he could allow himself to raise, well, they just account for 27%, a quarter of the taxes that you can do. So he's really boxing himself in on this. Then there are other taxes that aren't covered by this. Let's listen to that. He was asked about a wealth tax. Now, viewers might remember, on Sunday, Lord Kinnock told Sky News that Keir Starmer should impose a wealth tax. Today, the Green Party leader asked about that. Listen how Keir Starmer doesn't sound very keen.
Growing numbers of people are joining calls for a wealth tax on the super-rich. So will the Prime Minister stand by his promise that those with the broadest shoulders should carry the largest burden?
Mr. Speaker, we can't just tax our way to growth. We need to ensure that we put in place the necessary measures. We're putting in place planning reforms, Mr. Speaker, to drive growth. He voted against it and they voted against it.
So he doesn't definitively rule out wealth taxes, but look, if you just heard that, it's clear that he doesn't sound keen. Now, there was one set of taxes that Keir Starmer kind of very noticeably didn't rule out imposing. Now, that's to do with income tax and the personal thresholds. Now, at the moment, if thresholds rise with inflation, now, if you freeze those, as the Tories did for many years, that drags more people into tax and it raises billions for the exchequer. It's a tax rise, income tax rise in all but name, although politicians deny that. Now, Keir Starmer was asked about that specifically by Kemi Badenoch. Listen how he doesn't answer that.
The Chancellor promised that she would lift the freeze on income tax and national insurance thresholds because, in her words, they hurt working people. Is that still government policy?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, no Prime Minister or Chancellor is going to write a budget in advance.
Now, you heard there Keir Starmer really leaving that open. So could that be the answer? Well, the problem for Keir Starmer is that his Chancellor, in October, in the budget, did unfreeze those thresholds. And at that time, she said that to do anything else would break the party's promises. Listen to this.
Extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their payslips. I'm keeping every single promise on tax that I made in our manifesto. So there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax and national insurance thresholds beyond the decisions by the previous government.
So I suppose the question is, did he get the memo? I mean, if the Labour do that, they are going to have that part of the budget thrown back at them many times. All of these are reasons why economists are very worried, not least the Office for Budget Responsibility, which issued this big report yesterday. This report, it has to be said that Britain was in a vulnerable position because of the public finances, because of just how much we're borrowing and just how much we are taxing. It also said that Britain has the third highest borrowing costs amongst advanced economies, and there are so many risks, whether it's pensions, whether it's climate change costs, or trade policy, or the European defence. So many different reasons why we might suddenly have to spend more. asking the question, how are we going to deal with that if we can't borrow, because we're pretty much at the top of the amount that we can borrow as a country, leading us right back to the question, if Keir Starmer is boxing this government in, refusing to touch so many of the taxes, are we in a tax black hole and a tax dead end?